Hello, today we're looking at the beginning of the discipling process as we start off in our second week. And we're going to look at how the process begins by identifying those people that we want to mentor or disciple. And of course, we don't do this from our own desires, but it's a process of asking God. It's a process of looking at who's in our life and who has brought God to, and who seems to have the willingness, the potential to really respond to our leadership in a discipling or mentoring relationship. I remember one year when I was serving in pastoral service. I was lead pastor at a church, and I started off the year in my annual retreat, and I just said, God, I would love to know those people that you want me to disciple this year. Who should I give special attention to? And I tell you the truth, I thought that God would give me a list of 2 or 3 people, and I pretty much knew who I thought that he should tell me, by the way. And instead, God gave me 12 names. 12 names. God started listing these names, and I started writing them down on my journal, and I thought God would never stop. 12 names. I knew at that moment, number one, that this meant that I'd probably spend a good half of my time that year pouring myself into these 12 individuals. It was very taxing. I haven't ever taken that many people on at once, but it was a strong sense of call that God gave. It was a delightful year because I love mentoring. I love the intentional relationship. I love seeing people respond to being stretched and challenged as well as affirmed. Well, I tell you, when I went to see the elders, they had the same response that I did at the 12 names. You know, some of those were just who you would have expected. The 2 or 3 I had in my list, God had on his list as well. But the elders had the same nervousness about 2 or 3 names that I had. They said, you know, really those people aren't ready yet. They're not going to connect with you. They're not at a point when things are really moving ahead in your spiritual life, and you just take them off the list. And I said, well, it's not my list. It's God's list. And I'm not taking them off. I'm going to run this out, and I'm going to see what God has in store. Well, the bottom line is by the end of the year, of those 12 names, 7 or 8 were really great successes, as we count success. I could see growth in their life. God did some marvelous things. There were a couple that were moderate successes. They weren't anything that you'd write a journal article about or even give a testimony on Sunday morning, but they did well, and we had a good time, and we saw some progress. And then there were 2 that really didn't see any results. In fact, one of them, the person that took most of my time, unfortunately, I worked with and tried to find every angle I could to engage him and every angle to empower him and to really challenge him. But the response about 9 months into the church year is up and left the church. Up and left the church. It was a disappointment. Obviously, it was a disappointment. And I was reminded of the Apostle Paul with some of his disciples. He writes in Corinthians, and then later on, some hints in some of the pastoral epistles, that some of Paul's disciples, the people he was closest to and he poured his life into, actually split the churches that Paul founded. And I think of the pain that must have brought to his heart. Well, most of these people did great things. We worked together and saw a couple of marriages healed, which is always to me one of the apexes of what a church can do in terms of pastoral ministry. We saw some folks move into new areas of ministry and actually launch new ministries for the churches that expanded its outreach and its impact, and new people came to know the Lord as a result of that discipling process. We saw a couple of those people who decided during the year that really their call was to missions. And so they left the church not out of anger, but out of a sense of call into what they recognized God was stirring up in their hearts. And so, great year, disappointments, marvelous things, and a year of faithfulness for me. So, a couple things that I want to say about this as we think about choosing names. Don't try to choose the names of just the people you know will succeed, because frankly, you don't know who those people are. And secondly, God's not interested in you being 100% successful. Remember the parable of the four soils? Only one of the kind of soils really ended up doing well in the long run. I think my success, and I'm praying that your success will be greater than that. Um, but don't try to pick the ones just that you know will be a quote unquote success. And then secondly, it's an important question for your prayer time once in a while to say, God, who is it? Who is it that you want me to disciple? Who is it that you want me to take to the next level? Who is it that will stretch me as I move into an intentional relationship with Him? Well, thank you for being faithful to your week. Last week we're off to a good start, and this week we really gear up and start moving as we think about the process that allows us to transfer what God is doing into our life and making that a template and a tool for seeing God at work in other people's life. God bless you as we move into week 2.